Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think I have about 15, 20 minutes or so for keynote. So I'll try to outline it in brief. The green hydrogen is a vast subject, especially looking at the interest it has generated in the last 2 years or so. Of course, in India, we launched the National Green Hydrogen Mission in January of last year. We have made a lot of progress, and I'm really happy to outline what all has happened. Firstly, I'm sure many of you are, since you're all associated with the industry, but of course it may vary, the industries may vary. But what we essentially want to do, and I'm looking at it from Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, as was outlined in the previous session, as part of our Panch Amrit goals that the Honorable Prime Minister has set, what we want to do is decarbonize the economy. If you just want to look at the underlying crux, the focus is on decarbonization. So one way, of course, is using, replacing the electricity, whatever is produced from fossil sources of energy, with the renewable sources of power, which is solar, wind, bioenergy, hydro, whatever you may say. That's one part of it. The second part, and of course, if you look at the overall energy landscape of the country, power sector actually contributes to about 20%, 18 to 20% of the total energy basket of the country. So if you only focus on power, then of course we need to start thinking about what to do about the other 80%. And that's where green hydrogen comes in partly. It is basically meant to decarbonize the hard-to-abate sector. If you can actually look at, if you can use electric power, especially powered from renewable sources, I think then you really don't need really need green hydrogen. You can still use it. You can use it for pilots. You can use it for demonstration. You can use it if you think it's going to lead to some advantage. But essentially it is meant for hard-to-abate sector. So during the process, in the last 1.5 years, 1 year, 9 months almost, what we've done is remarkable in India. In fact, India is now counted as one of the countries which is leading in not only in green hydrogen policy framework, but also in its implementation. And the reason is that we've started almost along with the other countries, which has not happened in many years for many other sectors. And that's where I think we got the edge as far as green hydrogen is concerned. Our mission is about outlines not only a budget, an outlay which was mentioned like 19,700 crores to be exact, but it's also creating an ecosystem. That's a part of the mission. So it's not only a budget which has to be specifically used for certain items, but what else to do to make sure that it is successful. So, of course, let me first tell about the budget. We have about 19,700 crores, out of which 17,500 crores, about $2 billion plus, is for incentives. And because what we felt was that it's first necessary to produce green hydrogen in the country and encourage people to do it, encourage industry to do it. And that's why a big outlay was kept for encouraging, incentivizing green hydrogen production in the country. 13,000 crore or so is for the production incentive. About 4,500 crores is for electrolyzer manufacturing, because we don't want to be totally dependent on imports when we start producing green hydrogen. And in fact, for the electrolyzer manufacturing, the entire budget is now allocated. 1,500 megawatts was allocated earlier this year, and the second 1,500 megawatt worth of projects have been allocated recently, about 10 days ago. So therefore, entire 3,000 megawatt is allocated. In the green hydrogen production, what we estimate is with that budget that we have of 13,000 crore, we should be able to, in fact, when we started, we were estimating that we will be able to incentivize about 1.2 million metric tons of green hydrogen production entirely with that outlay that we had. So when the first tranche of bidding was conducted of 4.5 lakh tons, other than the biomass part of it, because we wanted to encourage that also, the rest was fully allocated. So for about 4 lakh 10,000, 4 lakh 12,000 to be exact, was allocated for green hydrogen production. But the kind of bids that we received, because we wanted people to compete for the incentive, the kind of average incentive that we got was about 24 rupees per kilogram, vis-a-vis what we were thinking of 40, 30, and 20. 50, 40, and 30 for 3 years. So average incentive was about in the mid-20s. So therefore, we then realized that our budget we can use for larger extent of green hydrogen production. So we've come out with another bid of 4.5 lakh tons, which is out there right now, which we are now waiting for bids. The second, but it was also essential to create an ecosystem of how do we actually start using green hydrogen in the country. Our basic focus is exports, so that will continue. But the industry felt that purely on focusing on export would not give them enough, mitigate the kind of risk that they feel they have when they are starting to set up this industry. And therefore, we looked at how to use green hydrogen in the country. Obvious sectors, if you're part of the green hydrogen ecosystem in some way or energy sector in some way, is the largest extent of grey hydrogen used in the country is essentially used in either fertilizer manufacturing or refineries. The two big industries which use grey hydrogen. So our first focus was using green hydrogen and replacing the grey hydrogen with this green hydrogen. So on both aspects, we have worked quite a bit. The refineries themselves, I mean, I must tell you, the public sector refineries, because of our push, have agreed to have a goal of about 50% of their hydrogen use by 2030 to be replaced by green hydrogen. And that's a significant number. If they're already consuming about 2.5 million tons of grey hydrogen in a year, if you can convert about 50% of that, about 1 million tons, if you look at the PSUs, about 1 million tons of grey hydrogen would be converted or replaced by green hydrogen in the country. And that's a big number. Our total target, as you know, is 5 million metric tons. So if 1 million tons goes into domestic refinery sector, which is a big industry for India, that would be a big game changer, and that's what is going to happen. And refineries, we have allocated capacities, they are coming out with their own bids. For the fertilizer sector, we are already, as you know, importing about 2.8 million tons of green ammonia in the country for our fertilizer manufacturing. I'm talking about non-urea. And the low-hanging basket is, can we replace what is being imported with what is being produced in India? And so we had to work with Department of Fertilizers and with the fertilizer companies. And we've come out with an aggregation bid for 7.4 lakh tons of green ammonia per annum for 10 years. And that's the kind of number. And if you look at any tender in the world in green hydrogen, and I must tell you, you can check it out. People are talking about it, countries are wanting to do it, countries are starting to use it. But again, there's hardly been any aggregation. This is the biggest tender of green ammonia or green hydrogen derivative in the world with a 10-year timeline, 10-year contract period. And that's what the game changer is. And we hope it's right currently out there. We hope to close it in the next couple of months. And the price is still to be discovered. And we are hoping that when the price of green ammonia is discovered, it would be closer to the grey ammonia cost than what is believed. And therefore, there would be further traction of using green ammonia in the country, replacing the imported ammonia. And that's the kind of game changer we're looking at. So with this aggregation in India, this kind of demand visibility in India, with an export-oriented focus, I think we are on track to achieve what we want to do. About 7.5 million metric tons of green hydrogen projects have already been announced by companies in India. Some of our colleagues are sitting here, and we are very, very confident. And these are specific projects, and many of them have already been, land has been tied up, the location has been decided, land has been tied up, PPAs are being finalized, where the renewable energy capacities are going to come up, those are being finalized. So all the entire ecosystem is coming up. And with this traction of local demand, domestic demand, as well as export opportunities, these projects are actually going to come online. In fact, for the export, just to mention, from our record, we're going to keep tracking what is already announced by the companies and what has been decided. About 1.5 million metric tons of green ammonia has already been tied up for export in an MOU or some kind of a term sheet. Different kinds of arrangements are being made, and the process is continuing. Whenever I talk to my colleagues here, CEOs, then they will tell me, oh, now we are working on this, now we are working on this, and this is now almost on track. So that's kind of, so we have visibility on export front, we have visibility on the demand front. And that is what is changing the paradigm of green hydrogen ecosystem in India. So that was just the production, visibility, encouragement, and what is all happening in the sector. But we had to create an ecosystem, right? This is what I mentioned in the beginning. So we are looking at standards, because when it's a new system, we must have specific standards for green hydrogen production, storage, and use, and transportation. Again, all aspects of green hydrogen ecosystem. On all these, we have a working group under me, which has representatives of all the regulatory agencies, which do standards, and we work together. We have industry helping us. We have subcommittees headed by the industry members who give us suggestions on what standards. They look at all the standards. They've been looking at all the standards in the world. They've been telling us what to adopt, what to amend, what to tweak and adopt, or what to create a new one. We've forwarded more than 100 recommendations till now in the last 1.5 years to different agencies for adoption and notification. 73 have already been published. And that's the kind of progress which has been made. And again, it's going to be a continuous process. We're looking at whatever is happening in the world, we want to make sure that we have a standard for what is required. R&D is going to be very important, because we feel that lowering the cost of green hydrogen can only happen if you improve the efficiency of electrolyzer, if you are able to have technology to store it properly, to transport it properly, and to use it properly. So therefore, the entire R&D program of 400 crore, we received over 400 proposals for this. We had a call for proposals. Now we are just going to finalize it in the next month. So standards is there, R&D is there. We are setting up testing facilities to make sure that that we have an ecosystem which would allow the industry to use it. A green hydrogen certification scheme. We have come out with a standard for India, 2 kilogram outer limit of carbon dioxide emission, if you want to certify it as green hydrogen. And Bureau of Energy Efficiency is going to do that process through third-party agencies, and you can take benefit of that. We are also going to look at international partnerships, international tie-ups of how do we, are able to, other countries are able to recognize what we are doing, and we are able to recognize what the others are doing. So we're looking at the entire ecosystem. I think that would just, in short, I think I spent a little more than 20 minutes on this, but I thought, I think this is as short as I can be. If you really want to understand what has happened in the green hydrogen ecosystem, I think I'll stop here, and I'll look forward to whatever queries you have or answer any specific questions you have. Thank you so much.
So thanks a lot for your wonderful keynote address. Uh, we all are excited about, green hydrogen and the way the future, looks like. Globally, when we see, when we go out, people are excited about India's green hydrogen plan. And people think that, India has a great potential, not only to create, but also to export to the global economies. Sir, you have given a wonderful, insight. But I want to understand from you that, when we talk to many of the players who aspire to be into the green hydrogen field, they still feel that the price is too high. And until unless it comes down to sub $1 level, it will not be viable. So is there any thought in ministry that whether we should look for some alternatives to cut down the cost? Export could be one, and carbon credit trading, especially in the international markets, could be another. But I'm sure you must be going through many ideas. Help us in understanding this, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I mentioned one, of course. See, what do? I mean, when we are giving an incentive, that's one way of reducing the cost of green hydrogen production. So that's one. Of course, what the bids we are getting and the kind of incentives are being quoted, we are assuming that the companies are, asking for that value based on what their estimate of cost of production is, and therefore they want to bridge that gap between green hydrogen and gray hydrogen. That's one aspect. The second is that renewable energy is actually, I mean, when we electrolyze water and split it into hydrogen and oxygen, the power cost is essentially about 70%, 65 to 70% of the entire cost of production of green hydrogen. So if, in a sense, if you really want to reduce the cost of green hydrogen, we must address this 70% cost in some way. That's the big animal. Second is the 30%. That 70% specific things are being looked at, and that's what the industry is also looking at. One, of course, is when you electrolyze, can we use less power? So therefore, an electrolyzer which is expected to use 55 units of energy, of power to, for 1 kilogram of hydrogen, can that be brought down to from 55 to 50, 48, 47, 45? In fact, that's the kind of numbers which are out there in the public domain across the world. And many companies are now claiming that they have come out with efficient electrolyzers who can do this. If you take that from 55 units to suppose, I mean, that was our estimate when we were doing it, to about 45, 47, you're chopping off about 15-20% of the cost straight away. That's one aspect of it. Second is, of course, renewable energy being in India. As you know, in India, RE cost is one of the lowest in the world. And we are hoping that with the, of course, it also varies on cost of modules, it cost of other elements. But we are hoping that this lowering of cost will continue. In India, we have, that's the kind of ecosystem that we feel is there. Wind energy cost has increased recently, but solar energy has stabilized and is likely to go down in the future as well. In addition, what is happening is that that's not the only cost, because when you are using it, you have to pay some extra charges, which the local state charges when it comes in. It's not only the interstate transmission cost, there are some extra charges which are charged. Many states have announced waivers, many states have announced concessions if the green hydrogen project is in India. So the additional charge cost of RE, which is borne by the consumer, is likely to be lower than what is expected for a normal, any other project. And therefore, that's another way of lowering the cost. As far as, that's the kind of, in general, I would say. But we're working on improved electrolyzer in India. So R&D is, part of the R&D is meant for research on electrolyzers, better electrolyzer, improved efficiency. Storage, transportation, that's another aspect. Transportation is very difficult of green hydrogen. So we need to have systems in place which allow transportation. If you're going to transport only by using cascades or container, it's not going to be either, and it's going to neither cheap nor feasible. So we have to have pipelines for transportation. Again, the distance between the production center and the consumption center, the consumption plant, whether it is it's a port for export or whether it's a fertilizer plant or a refinery or any other steel plant, that distance has to be short so that the transportation cost is lower. So everybody is looking at different aspects of the entire value chain to attack it from the point of view of lowering the cost. And we expect that in the green ammonia tender that we come out with, which is pretty large tender, we are expecting it come out with a lower cost than what the green ammonia is supposed to be to value at the currently. Another aspect of it is, and again, this is something that everybody must think about. We assume that the cost of gray hydrogen is about 150 rupees, 150 rupees. That if you talk to anyone, they'll say this is the cost of gray hydrogen per kilogram. If you talk about green hydrogen, it is supposed to be 300, 250, 300, 350. But if we were talking to one of the players who's doing this at a medium scale level, not even small level. So what they are saying is that, okay, the refineries, when they're evaluating the cost of green hydrogen, perhaps are not recognizing all the aspects of it. That's one part of it. Second is that there are many small players, there are many other industries in India which use hydrogen for different applications across India. And they are also in clusters. And this company is actually supplying green hydrogen, they didn't tell us the price, at around 400, 450 rupees to these companies who are willing to buy, because otherwise they are paying about 400 rupees or 450 rupees for gray hydrogen, because they only get a small quantity of it, and they don't use too much of it. But if they are in a cluster, and many clusters they have identified in India, so there can be different ways of looking at it.
Sure. When we see, the government of India incentivizing, the private players, we have seen in last 10 years that Prime Minister Modi's government has taken several risks. One of the risks which, came in your segment is that you gave a single company a tender of a PLI where 7 people came. So now one player is getting a PLI incentive. So what was the thought process? Are you coming up with a series of such PLI bids, or I'm talking about the ACC cells, which Reliance got, the 10 gigawatt hour capacity. So do you think that more such bids need to come? Because we have seen 7, 8 players had the interest, and they all are big players. So,
this is, I think, a tender from Ministry of Heavy Industries, not by us. It's a PLI scheme run by Ministry of Heavy Industries. They have their own criteria they must have had. In our green hydrogen, I'll talk about both. In green hydrogen incentives, for our green hydrogen production of 4.5 lakh, our first bid, we have 10 players for 4.1 lakh. For electrolyzer manufacturing, for the first 1,500, I think we had 8 players. In second round, we have about 11 players. We have set a cap. What we've done is we've set a cap. This is the maximum. In fact, in green hydrogen production also, we've set a cap. No company can get more than that across any mode of incentive. So we've set a cap for green hydrogen. We set a cap for electrolyzer manufacturing. So we want more players. We do not want one player, frankly, in our scheme of things.
So Prime Minister has already given us a vision of green hydrogen. Now in next 2 months you'll be remitting your office. So what sort of vision you are leaving behind, maybe for a shorter term, maybe in 2 years, 3 years terms? Your successor is already part of your ministry now, so you must be sharing some thoughts with him. So help us in understanding the insights which you are, giving him, how to take this mission forward.
I think my successor has already joined. He's attending most meetings. So he's already, and he's already he's an engineer by profession, by his education. So he knows this subject already. And no, we are, I don't think he has a different take on what is going on. And our, in the government, one for a bureaucrat, we have a timeline. We have age of retirement. So we are there, and we work till then, and then we pass on the baton. And I mean, the vision is very clear. The vision is actually not mine. What we are saying is not our vision. The vision is of the government. And therefore, what we do is, whichever scheme you may take, and whichever sector you may take, and this will be applicable across all ministries, what we do is implement. What we do is give advice. What we do is, propose. And once a strategy is made, it is to be implemented by us. So the vision is out there. I don't think anyone can change the vision. In green hydrogen, I mean, our vision is...
So when I said your vision is that how to execute Prime Minister's grand vision, so how are you both aligning your thoughts? So
yeah, no, that's what I meant was the same. It will continue in the same vein. We have to finalize all the tenders. We have to come out, make sure that everything is allocated. That's a timeline. I mean, that's something which will carry on. It may get completed in 1 month. It may get completed in 3 months, 4 months. And if something is left over, some incentive is left over, then we'll come out with another bid and make sure it's got fully allocated. R&D, everything, not only we start, not only we allocate, we also make sure that the projects come up. The projects are done within a given time frame. We are able to achieve the outcomes. So, we always, everything is measured in terms of what is rolled out, and then you keep implementing it. And maybe I'm sure then we'll come out with some other new things to do, not only in green hydrogen, but other parts of RE as well.
Sir, we have several industry players in the audience. If somebody has questions, we have time only for one.
I'm Sunil Bhatnagar from Invergy. My question is regarding e-mobility. Presently, we see the battery electric is doing very well because as compared to fossil fuel, the battery electric running cost is coming almost 25% to 30% only. It's a very cheap fuel. But as far as the hydrogen is concerned, the cost is coming double than the fossil fuel. So how to address that thing? This is my question.
Yeah, I didn't talk about the other sectors. I only talked about refining and fertilizer. But 3 other major sectors are steel, mobility, and shipping. I'm not even taking aviation at the moment, because for India it's a little distant. For mobility, it's only we're talking about long-haul mobility. Because short-haul mobility, cars are very efficient, SUVs, cars, and they can run for miles on electric charge. For long-haul mobility, buses and trucks, essentially, is something that we need to work on, and that's where the green hydrogen will make a difference. We have come out with pilots. So we're doing pilots in all these 3 sectors. The pilots for mobility, I believe, are going to be announced finalized probably in this month, the next 10, 15 days or so. And that will then start the process of evaluating the use of green hydrogen through fuel cell technology or otherwise in the mobility. And based on our experience of that, then we will actually come to know whether, what to do to make it more, to bridge that gap that you're talking about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And it's wonderful to hear. It's always great, speaking to you. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks.